A Belfast church has filed a lawsuit against the University of Maine System over the sale of the Hutchinson Center in Belfast. Calvary Chapel Belfast filed the lawsuit today, accusing UMS of religious discrimination after rescinding the sale of the Hutchinson Center to the group after multiple appeals. The complaint states that the church is seeking a temporary restraining order to halt the sale of the center. The lawsuit follows the announcement of the sale of the center to the Waldo Community Action Partners Group last week. The University of Maine System says that they are still reviewing the complaint, but they strongly disagree with the allegations of discrimination. UMS says that they received a formal protest of the sale from the Calvary Chapel Belfast today.